Okay, so I have some thoughts about SCP-3890, Forget Me Not. Now, typically I read SCPs to escape, so it's rare that I get to appreciate one for forcing me to stay grounded in my reality. To be clear, the reality that is presented in this particular gem is horrible. It tackles one of my absolute worst fears in the world, forgetting my life and the people in it. And then, of course, it amplifies that fear to anomalous levels because, well, I mean, it is an SCP after all. But that doesn't mean something horrible and supremely tragic can't be handled beautifully. If you know all about the lore of SCP 3890, go ahead and skip ahead using the timestamp. Otherwise, sit back, relax, and share this gut punch of a tale with me because, like I said, I have some thoughts. Let's talk SCP 3890, a true battle to remember. Description: SCP-3890 is a potentially extra-dimensional or extraterrestrial space discovered by one Dr. Elizabeth Graham, a researcher for the SCP Foundation. By unknown means, Dr. Graham was transported from Site-22 on February 17, 2016, while transporting documentation for the containment of several other SCP items, but the Foundation does not believe these documents had anything to do with her anomalous encounter. Now, everything the Foundation knows about SCP-3890 they learned from a series of reports written by Dr. Graham herself while trapped inside the anomaly. From her observations, we learn that SCP-3890 takes the form of a seemingly infinite desert. There are ruins buried everywhere beneath the sand, buildings of modern design, along with what appear to be ruins of ancient Roman and Arakeshan structures. For clarity, the Arakeshan civilization within the SCP universe are responsible for containment of SCP-2317, the Devourer of Worlds. I probably need to do a video on that, but for now, go Google it, okay? Dr. Graham, meanwhile, notes that she doesn't need to eat nor drink, although sleep is still a requirement. SCP-3890 appears to follow a normal day-night cycle, and the weather appears to remain constant and comfortable throughout her documented journey. Now, there are two things that really make SCP-3890 hit home for me. The first of which are SCP-3890-1 and SCP-3890-2, entities that Dr. Graham encounters while trapped. The second thing to give this particular report some teeth: the author's choice to present the reports as more of a personal journal. I encourage you to read the article yourself, actually. It's good, it's an experience. Now, we follow along with Dr. Graham as she crosses the infinite desert, doing her best to fight back against the sheer isolation and hopelessness of her situation. It is in her travels Dr. Graham encounters SCP-3890-1. In her own words, SCP-3890-1 is my collective designation for the humanoid entities that wander through SCP-3890. They do not appear to respond to any stimuli, and as far as I've been able to tell, simply walk around without a specific destination. I have observed several of them simply walking in circles around buildings. Is there a meaning to this behavior, or are they simply unintelligent? At this point, I cannot be sure. Like the buildings, specimens of SCP-3890-1 appear to originate from a range of locations and times, some modern, some ancient. Further examination, and by examination I mean she attacks and straight up performs an autopsy on one, because she's Foundation, right? Reveals that the entity is human. She concludes that the people wandering SCP-3890 have been completely robbed of their mental faculties. They do not age and have been left to wander forever. Enter SCP-3890-2. Oh boy. In her reports, Dr. Graham does her best to describe SCP-3890-2. For effect, I'll read her descriptions verbatim. SCP-3890-2 is a living entity of varying shape and size which resides in SCP-3890. I am uncertain as to whether SCP-3890-2 originates here, or if it was transported here at some point in the same way I was. From what I have observed of its behavior, it appears to be some form of predator. SCP-3890-2 is currently hunting me. In her very first encounter with the entity, SCP-3890-2 sneaks up behind her while she rested and knocks her unconscious. It continues to attack the doctor for the duration of her reports, with several hours between each attack. According to Dr. Graham, the entity is capable of disguising itself as any perceivable element contained within SCP-3890. This includes a specimen of SCP-3890-1, The Wandering People, a piece of loose documentation, a star in the sky, a building on the horizon, a fly, and a patch of dirt on her leg. As her journey stretches on, with attacks from SCP-3890-2 coming more frequently, Dr. Graham continues to attempt to make sense of her predicament. Upon the nature of SCP-3890-2, she writes, "I cannot be sure whether SCP-3890-2 is simply fooling my brain into perceiving it as these things or whether it does actually become them. Once I approach the thing SCP-3890-2 is mimicking, it, for lack of a better word, unfolds before striking at me. Its true form is difficult to describe as it is constantly shifting and warping in on itself. The closest thing I can describe it as is black origami, folding and unfolding, stretching and compressing. SCP-3890-2 uses amnesticization as a form of attack. While it has not injured me physically thus far, I have lost all memory of significant chunks of my childhood and early adulthood. I can no longer recall which high school I went to or what my first job was. My current hypothesis is that, as an entity, it feeds upon memory. The specimens of SCP-3890-1 are people who were brought here in the past. They fell victim to SCP-3890-2 and lost all memory. With what I've seen here, this is the only conclusion I can reach." Wow. We're not talking air-shimmering cloaking technology of predators here. Imagine an enemy that is impossible to detect, that devours whole chunks of your life. She's using context clues, memories that she still possesses to realize she can't remember her high school because she can remember other things that clue her in that she went. But imagine all the things that she can't realize are now missing. Maybe a heartfelt look or a conversation with a sibling that steered the course of their lives and relationships going forward. You can't miss what you never had. That is terrifying to me. Let's continue. Now, as Dr. Graham continues her exploration, the attacks from SCP-3890-2 become more aggressive. In response, she makes the decision to kill it, which I was 100% on board with by this point. To challenge the entity for her remaining memories. I mean, if you're gonna go swinging. The heartbreaking thing about her decision are the threads of futility woven between the cracks of her report leading up to her confrontation. You can hear her desperation, her absolute terror, masked and ignored and stuffed behind her resolve to fight as she attempts to hold firm to what is left of herself. She suspects everything is the entity in hiding at this point. Everything. Every brick on an exposed structure, every cloud in the sky, every grain of sand, which turns out to be prudent as the entity does in fact hide itself as one, which is just, come on. Dr. Graham does get a brief break from her isolation when she encounters a crying 10-year-old boy named Tony. The mimic, as she begins to call the entity, makes no sound and it cannot speak, and it doesn't ever act intelligently, so she trusts the boy, and together they build a shelter, keeping watch for the creature. Dr. Graham wakes the next morning to find a new entry she must have input while asleep. The report is gibberish, and Dr. Graham realizes Tony is gone and was the entity in disguise. While she slept, it had emptied more of her memories, including her name. Murder on her mind, Dr. Graham prepares to kill the beast. She walks for miles until it attacks, shaped as a cloud in the sky. She stabs it repeatedly with her knife. The entity wounds her too, though, pulling whole chunks of her memories away. The creature dies, collapsing into a tiny black ball which she crushes with her foot. That easy. Why couldn't I have done it before? There would have been so much more left of me if I had done it straight away. Maybe I had a reason. It's not like I know anymore. When a bee stings somebody, it dies. Maybe the mimic had something similar. The way it got me, right before I finished it off, it feels different. Before, it just took something straight away. Now, I feel like a boat with holes in it. Water rushing in or leaking out in my case. The metaphor doesn't quite work. She goes on to end the report. I don't want to die. I look at all the people here wandering forever, eyes burnt out from looking up at the sun, and all I can think is that I don't want to die. I can still do it. There's time. So easy. I could do it. Just do it. I should just... I don't know what these words mean. I don't want to disappear. And that's it. The next report she makes is completely blank. Again, this one really hit different for me. There's just something truly horrible about a life forgotten, not by others, but by the person who lived it. Our memories are us. We, you, I, we are who we are right now because of the memories that shape our decisions. They justify why we do what we do now. They give our choices, and so our lives, context. Imagine being asked to make a decision with no information to back it up. Imagine being in a hospital room and they ask you to choose to save one little kid or the one next to him, not realizing that one of them was your child. A bit dramatic, but that's what Dr. Graham faced. That's what people suffering with illnesses like this suffer every day in real life. Witnessing the deconstruction of your life and realizing you won't know when you won't know the moment you no longer exist. That's what SCP-3890-1 represented, I think. That nexus point when a person loses grip on what makes them them, but life still remains in their body. They exist. Nothing more. My name is Elizabeth Graham. My name is Elizabeth Graham. My name is Elizabeth Graham. I can't forget that now. This page is my memory. Word, Dr. Graham. I hear you. But what do you think, guys? Let me know in the comments, like, and subscribe. Oh, and if you happen to be a sci-fi, fantasy, or comic book author or creator, check out NTLT book covers. We specialize in these genres, so we'll set you up with a cover that'll absolutely rock your fans' world. Go to ntltpresents.com today, okay? Badass book covers for sci-fi and fantasy authors. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.